Hi folks, it's me Michaela and welcome back to my channel. I am starting another reading vlog today. You know that I'm about to go to work and I'm running late. When am I not? But I have decided this week I am actually going to read my TBR. I know, this is like huge news. I am using this week to actually read books that I put on my 24 books in 2024 list. Okay, it's October. I really need to get on that. Today while I'm at work, I'm going to be starting The Brothers Hawthrone, which is the fourth book in the Inheritance games. I was going to call it a trilogy. Clearly, it's not a trilogy if there's 4 books. In the Inheritance Games series by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. This is probably going to be the last book in the series that I read. So once I finish this, I'm going to call it done. I believe there's another book that's kind of like, it's like a sister book, like a companion series or something, like a spin-off series. I don't even know. I'm not going to be reading it. I thought it was just a trilogy. Now more books keep releasing, and I thought it was just a trilogy. I thought I was done. So I'm not exactly like, woo, about the books. But I am kind of interested in the 4th book just to see what it is and what it does. Just because, like, again, I thought it was a trilogy. Like, I thought I read the 3rd book and I was like, great, everything's clued up. Wonderful, woo. And it's not. So we're going to find out. And then I do have like a couple other books. I had like a bunch of Libby loans all come in at once. So I do have choices for what I'm going to read after The Brothers Hawthrone. But I figured, let me read this and then I'll decide. I tell you what I'm going to read next, but I don't know. I'm going to read books I put on my TBR for a change. This is the year I said I would read them in. So like I'm winning that way. Let's read these books. Let's accomplish these goals and all that. Let's read my TBR. Okay. I really should have ironed this shirt before I put it on, but too late now. Hello there. I am currently a third of the way through The Brothers Hawthrone, and I'm a third of the way through The Brothers Hawthrone. It's not that it's bad. I'm not going to give it like a horrible rating because it's not written for me. It's YA. I am not YA. I am not the target audience of this book. So that's definitely part of the reason why it's like irking me. But it's kind of cringy to me a little bit. We're following Grayson and Jameson, 2 point of views. You switch back and forth. And it's like post the final gambit. Where is that? The final gambit and that whole series. And it's like the 2 of them individually kind of working through the mystery of their personal lives, for lack of wanting to spoil anything in the trilogy. There's just something. It's like they're both like just like perfect at everything. They're so good at sleight of hand and they can lockpick, and they're so good in high society, and they can like go up against anybody with their words and like double meaning. But they're like 20. They're like 19 and 20. So I'm just like, okay. Literally, anytime there's a conversation, it's like dialogue, and then it's like a thought of like, they actually meant this. Or like the nod of his head actually, blah, 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 blah. And this actually, blah, 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 blah. And I'm just like, again, I know it's YA, maybe that's why it's being like spelled out more. This whole idea of like, nobody says what they mean because it's high society, but we all know what they mean because we're so high and mighty in our societal place as like a 19-year-old. I just like don't believe that fully fledged adults would be treating children still that way. I mean, I know you're 19, you're 20, you're not a child, but like you're still so young, and it's like that. I don't believe it. And then add into the fact that a lot of this just kind of feels like showing off wealth, and again, it just feels like kind of cringy because they'll just like describe like all of their clothes are so fancy, and then the dress is so intricate, and it's so nice, and it's so beautiful, and look at how fancy and rich everybody is, and we're going to the race and we have the giant hat, and look at this mansion that we're in, and blah, 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 blah. And it just like feels like unnecessary. Like, I get it, okay, they're billionaires, whoa, but it's just like so, what's the word, it's just like so in your face. It's not subtle at all. Like, subtle is out the window, and I just find it like kind of annoying, because what I liked about the trilogy, especially the first book, I found it kind of went downhill the farther into the trilogy you went. I really feel like it almost should have just been a standalone book, because what was fun is like the mystery and the mind game and the puzzles and the setting of like this like billionaire mansion is what like makes it possible for that setting to exist, because like you have to be rich to have all of these like secret doors and like or whatever, you know, money is needed in order to create these games that they're playing in the initial trilogy. But now that the trilogy is over and it's just like rich people being like, we're rich, look at all of this wealth. And I'm so cool and I know everything you mean, even though I'm 19, like you're saying this, but you actually mean this. And I'm going to put that all in the book. Like there's nothing left for interpretation. Like everything is told to you. Again, I think that's partially because this is like a YA novel and not an adult novel. So I'm trying to give it a bit of grace, but oh my God, sometimes I'm just like cringing on the inside because it's like annoying me. It's like roll my eyes. Like, really, you needed to explain that? You're going to explain that again? Where somebody's going to say something and then we're immediately going to put into the prose that they actually meant something else. We're doing that again. That's everything everyone says anytime, ever. Ugh, something in my throat. Anyway, I have to get to work, so I'm going to leave it there. I'm going to read some more. I will say this, like the trilogy, it's very bingeable. You can read it so fast. The chapters are like 4 pages, 5 pages, you know, like, so you can just keep reading them super easily. And I do like that about Jennifer Lynn Barnes. I just feel like this is a combination of like, it's YA, it's not for me, and that this is a series that got pulled out a little bit too far because it was popular. And I don't think this book needed to exist. We'll leave it at that. Okay. But yeah, just these wealthy 20-year-old boys just like constantly falling on their own swords for their pride is just, and being perfect at everything is annoying me. So I'm now 2/3 of the way through The Brothers Hawthrone, and it is getting better. It's getting better. Now that the mystery and the fun riddle puzzle game concepts of like the original trilogy is kind of like back in action, I am having more fun with it, so like that's good. But I really struggled with that setup. The setup for the book was hard for me. I was on the struggle bus trying to read the first third of this book, but then like once I got to like 45% of the way through to the halfway point, it got better. But like also, if it takes you half a book to start enjoying a book, like that's a problem. Like it's not going to be an amazing rating, but I also was going into this not expecting to give it an amazing rating, honestly, just based off of the fact that when I read the initial trilogy, which I do have a reading vlog for, by the way, if you want to check it out. I feel like that's from forever ago at this point. Basically, I loved the first book, and then the second and the third book just didn't have the same oomph for me as the first book did. So I wasn't going into this fourth book that I didn't even know was going to be existing thinking like, this is gonna be the one. This is gonna wow me. It's gonna be 5 stars. The third book didn't wow me, so I wasn't expecting this book to now wow me. It's also YA, and like, I'm not YA. I am very much just A. I am a adult. The tone and the characters, they're just like not relatable to me because I am not 19 and I am not a billionaire. Like, what is there for me to relate to? But it's just like tough for me. I read some YA and I like YA, and there's definitely very good YA. I just find especially like the relationships between characters in this series to just kind of be like secondhand embarrassment vibes for me while reading it. Like, I'm reading it and I'm like, I don't like that. You know, like it's feeling cringy teenager first relationship vibes. And I'm not trying to say that in a mean way. It's just like, I'm not there anymore. I'm not a teenager in their first relationship vibes anymore. So like, I'm looking back on it and it's reminding me of myself when I was that, and then therefore I'm getting secondhand embarrassment from myself. Even though like when you are that age, that is like totally normal behavior, okay, to like have that. It's just like reading it now as an adult is not a fun time for me because I personally like to try and forget that era of my life. Look, the point of this video is to read my TBR, to finish series, and like I discovered that by looking at Goodreads, I discovered I was doing all of my research by looking at Goodreads, that The Grandest Game, which is the newest book that's coming out, is actually a new series. So this fourth book is like the final book of the Inheritance Games. I can finish this book and like I can take the weight of the unfinished series off my shoulders. And that's truly my main goal here. And also because for whatever reason, I put this book on my 24 books in 2024 list. I think I really just put it there because I wanted to finish the series and like no other reason. It wasn't even like I was super that interested in reading it. So I don't even know why I'm here reading it, but here we are. Okay, I am a completionist, so I will be completing the series. And honestly, like I said, I'm actually kind of having some fun with it now. The mystery's back. The little gamified life of the billionaires is back. And I'm having fun with that. I'm thinking right now, I'm feeling like 3-star. You know, you just have to like lean in to the fact that it's just like not realistic in the slightest sense. Just accept that, move on. That's what I'm doing. So that's what I'm doing. And it's making me enjoy it more to just ignore that. That's what I'm choosing to do. But again, like it's not 5 stars for sure. I don't even think it's going to reach the 4-star point. I don't know. I have this like dreading feeling that the ending of this book is going to be like unnecessarily insanely dramatic and over the top. But we'll see. I'm going to read the rest of the book and then I'll give you my final thoughts. And then I'll let you know what I decide to read as my next book for the vlog because I'm not quite sure yet. Yeah, that's it. Good morning. It is currently like 8 o'clock in the morning on Saturday because I am incapable of sleeping in. I really wish I could, but I can't. So hopefully I'll just have like a nap later. But that's totally irrelevant to why I'm here. I finished reading The Brothers Hawthrone last night and it was fine. It was just fine, guys. That's all I kind of expected from it. So like I'm not disappointed, but I do think like there was a little part of me that was like hoping that it was gonna wow me again the way the Inheritance Games did, because I think the Inheritance Games, the first book of the series, is really good. It's a really great fun YA mystery read, and the rest of the series is kind of just fine. Again, I'm not YA, so I am like taking that into account. Ended up giving it 3 stars. I think if this wasn't a YA book, well, this is the thing, like if it wasn't a YA book, it wouldn't be written this way, and therefore I would have liked it better. My true rating would probably be more like a 2.5, but I'm bumping it up to a 3 because the book wasn't written for me, so I had to like take that into account in my rating, you know? I did find like the middle section, I was telling you, it was like picking up and it was having fun, and it had me hooked for a little while. The antics of the first book, like the vibe was there, but then I felt like the pacing just kind of like slowed, kind of hit a wall, and then I was like not that interested in it anymore, and I was like forcing myself to read it. And then like the last bit of the book picked up a bit again, but like really it was just like it all balanced out to just be like fine, because again the first 40% of the book was basically just setup, and I found it so difficult to read. So like if I didn't just force myself to push past that in order to read the book, like if I was anybody else who was capable of DNFing, which again I am not because I am a completionist, I probably would have DNF'd it, never got to the part that was fun, you know, because there's too much like showing off of wealth and cringy teenage behavior. I'm also like, I get that the boys, like the Hawthorne brothers, they have this whole thing where like every birthday they had to like invest, create something else. I don't know. One of the things every year on their birthday, they had to pick an activity to like master basically in that year. But the thing is that all of the things that they're somehow amazing at, it's like not possible to master that in 1 year of practice, no matter how much of a billionaire you are. Okay. And then also as a child, and then add into the fact that they're like doing something new every year, they can't upkeep all of the things they did. So how are they all amazing at like being almost Olympic level swimming and being amazing violinists and knife fighting and sword fighting and like multiple varieties of martial arts? Like, it's not possible. That is not true. And then add into the fact that they're all basically somehow like trained spies, which doesn't make sense. It's like they're all like so in tune with everything and all the details happening in their surroundings because of playing riddle games, but like it feels more like they're spies because this like sleight of hand hidden things and like being able to control their emotions and other people with their words. And then I remember that they're 19 and I'm like, no, because they're going around one-upping and outsmarting actual adults, like people who are old enough to be their parents, like that big of a generational gap in age. And it's just like, no, I don't believe it. I don't care how rich you are or how important your last name is. That doesn't mean that you walk into a room like you freaking know everything and own everything at the age of 19 that people are going to respect you. I don't believe that. It was just like the whole thing felt like highly unrealistic. It is highly unrealistic. Like the whole premise of it is highly unrealistic. But like even those smaller aspects of it felt unrealistic. And like if you can just ignorance is bliss it through that, like maybe you'd have a more fun time with this than I would. I also think if I actually was like a young adult, like if I was in high school and I was reading this series of book, I probably would have been obsessed with it, okay? But I'm not that anymore. So to me, it was just fine. It was just fine. 3 stars. I'm done the series now, which is great. It's wonderful. And I'm now going to start reading a new book this morning, Before the Coffee Gets Cold by Toshikazu Kawaguchi. And I forgot this was a series. So I was just really excited that I finished a series and now I'm about to start a series. This whole video is just net zero on the series spreadsheet. But that's not the focus of the video. The focus is to read books that are actually on my TBR for the year. So I'm reading this book and this is actually like a novella. It's like less than 200 pages, or at least it's less than 200 iPad pages. The pages on my iPad when I read in Libby are different than like actual Kindle books because a Kindle is smaller. So I don't know exactly how that translates, but it's like a novella length of book. So I feel like I could probably read this all today and I'll give you like an update maybe like halfway through because I feel like it'd be pointless to do 2 updates on a book this short. I'm gonna start reading this. I'll give you like a halfway through kind of update and then I'll give you a final update, but that might actually be like tomorrow even if I finish this today because like it's October. Your girl is losing the natural daylight very early these days and I'm a little upset about it. That's fine. It's fine. That's the negative side of fall. I'm gonna get started on reading this and I'll let you know my thoughts, and that's kind of it for now. I think my tea is hopefully finally cool enough that I can drink it, so I'm gonna do that. Editing Michaela here. I really made like the poor decision in this next clip to film in this spot during this time of day because the lighting changes and I slowly start looking like some ethereal being that has been touched by heaven, and I apologize for that, but also like not, because like I look like an ethereal being that was touched by heaven. But anyway, yeah, sorry about you're just gonna have to deal with that. My bad. Excuse me, I'm gonna need to sit here. Hello. I am now halfway through Before the Coffee Gets Cold. I also it was a great nap, but the waking up from the nap, not great. In the spirit of the book I'm reading, I made myself a coffee. Now I shall tell you my thoughts on Before the Coffee Gets Cold. So this is like a magical realism book that appears to be like it's in 4 distinct sections. There's like, I guess you could call them chapters, but because each one is like 40 pages, I won't. And it's like the 4 short stories based off of the fact that the first and the second one seem to be connected through like characters. I assume like all 4 of them have some kind of link between them to make them feel like a cohesive kind of series of stories to have in the one book together. Obviously, I haven't read the last 2, so I don't know. But this is a magical realism book where basically you can time travel in this cafe, and there's like all of these like rules and parameters, and going back in time, you can be in the past until the coffee you're drinking is cold. Like that's, you know, the whole premise from the title of the book. And so far I'm really enjoying it. I actually like read it really quickly. I did take like a real big break in the middle for that nap, but that was like not on the book. that was just on me being tired and waking up at like 6:45 this morning, even though I didn't need to. My body was just like, hello, I'm awake. And I had to suffer with that. So I am really enjoying it. I have to find like the writing is quite nice. It feels a little bit more on like the poetic side. So it definitely feels very literary. And I think the characters are quite nice and complex, and their stories are quite like poignant. I will say, like, I just finished reading the one husband and wife short story, and that one is like quite emotional. I like felt myself, I was like, oh my god, am I getting teary here at the end of this? Like maybe a little, like no tears fell, but like I was feeling it, you know? So it's definitely going like very well. I'm glad I decided to read the book. I am going to give it right now, like the first two, I'm going like, I'm feeling 4-star overall for the read. It's not like my favorite thing I've ever read, but I am having like a really nice time with this book. And I know this is a series now. I don't know if I would continue on in this series. I assume each book is just more short stories of people time traveling in the cafe. Like each book would be more of these short stories. So I think it might be nice to like pick up one of these books in between my other readings, but I don't think it's something that I would want to like pursue reading the whole series, you know? Like I'll add it to the series spreadsheet, and I think I'll like eventually maybe read all of the books, but I'm not like going out of my way to read all of the books. I hope that makes sense. I mean, I still have to finish this one first anyway, so we'll see how that goes. But yeah, I'm really enjoying it, having a good time. I'm gonna go read the rest of it. I'll definitely have to give my final update tomorrow because it's already like 3 o'clock in the afternoon because of that nap. So there's no way I'm gonna finish this book and be able to give an update before like daylight runs out. But that's fine. Then I'll have a different outfit on for the finale, the conclusion, my final thoughts, wrapping up the video and all that. I guess I'll like see you there. So I'll just see you when I finish reading the book. I don't really have like a whole lot of thoughts on it. It's just like I'm really liking it. I like the characters. I like the writing. It is actually quite like, it has like this kind of like quirky comical side to it that is like really fun. I think it's like quite like a fun read. It's actually reading pretty quick too, considering usually if like things are in large chunks like this where it's like you just have to read like the 40-page short story all in once, sometimes that like slows down my reading because I don't feel like I'm accomplishing a lot. But I've actually been reading this pretty like just like straight, just like reading it through, you know? That's been nice. I'll go read the other 2 sections and let you know my thoughts. Okay. I am here for my final update of the vlog because I did finish reading Before the Coffee Gets Cold. In the spirit of the book, I again have a coffee. I accidentally put so much pumpkin spice syrup in this. Oh well. So I ended up giving Before the Coffee Gets Cold 4.5 stars. I really loved it. I enjoyed like all 4 of the stories. I read it all very quickly in like one day. I understand why like people really love it and why it's really popular. I still think that in terms of the series, I'm not sure how many books are in the series currently. I think 3. I know there's definitely a second one, but I think there's 3 because there's like the one that's blue and then there's the one that's pink, and then I think there's like a beige toned cover one. That's really beside the point. But with the series, I feel it's not a series where it's like there's like an overarching plot that's like you're itching to continue. It feels very like these like pocket stories, so you can kind of pick up the next book, I'm assuming, sometime in the future whenever you feel like it. This is like a horrible example, but it's like the only example I can think of. It's like the Chicken Soup for the Soul books, where it's like they're all chicken soup for the soul books. It doesn't really matter if you read them all together, you know? Because it's like these isolated stories. Now, like in the Before the Coffee Gets Cold, all 4 of the stories are connected through the characters in them, but each short story, each segment of the book is its like own encapsulated story. And I really like that because it's like you feel these like little snippets of continuation from the story you just read and the story you're currently reading, and that like small threads of connection are like enough to really pull all of the stories together while leaving each individual and their time traveling to be their own individual story with its own merit without heavily relying on the other 3 stories to have like a solid base. It can survive on its own. You can read each individual section and it's like a complete story, but there's like a nice like Easter egg like phenomenon where you can see how they're connected. I feel like that's like a really long-winded way, like where I just repeated myself a bunch to say that, but I hope you get it. I really like that part of it. I also really like the writing. Like I said before, it's like quite quirky. So even though it's like very serious, there's like a lot of conversation kind of being had around different forms of grief and regret. It was very emotional and like very serious topics, but then at the same time, the writing style and some of the dialogue and the way characters reacted, because, you know, they're so human, they felt so complete that these little quirks gave it a lift, a lightheartedness sometimes to bring you out of the serious. It was like a wonderful balance of that. There's times where it's like a little funny and then, you know, like you're diving right back into something that's more heavy and serious of a topic. And I really like that. Also really like the prose. I think it's like a beautiful translation. Whenever I read translated works, I always wonder how much more powerful they must be in their original language, because there's so much that I feel like you can't properly like really translate, but I do feel like this translation of the work gives a very solid idea and concept of the overall atmosphere and impact that the original must have. Obviously, I don't speak Japanese and I cannot read Japanese, and so I have not read the Japanese book, and I can't really comment on how like effective it is, but like reading it in English, it did feel that way. It felt like a very thoughtful translation, which I appreciated. Yeah, like a great book, great little read. I would highly recommend reading it. It's like a wonderful, just like read it in one day, or you could read it and just read like one section a day. So like if you're looking just for like an in-between read, I think this is a great option, and I think it kind of can appeal to anybody. I think everybody can enjoy the book. The magical realism is really just the setting for the story that they want to tell, but the time traveling and the rules around it are still kind of like a fun magical realism fantasy feeling. So I had a really good time. I understand why I put this on my 24 books in 2024 list, and I'm glad that I actually read it in 2024. Look at me go, folks. Reading books I said I was going to read. So I'm going to end the vlog here. Let me know your thoughts on these books if you read either of these. Also, let me know, how are you doing with your own TBRs? Do you tend to stick to them and succeed, or do you forget about them and fail a lot like I do because you get excited about new books and forget about the ones that you're already excited about? It happens to the best of us. So if you happen to like this video, make sure to give it a like, get a little thumbs up. If you happen to like me, consider subscribing. I'd be happy to have you. And with that, I hope you're having a wonderful day today, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.